Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Akhilesh Nair, and today I'll be going over through a project that I've done recently as a part of CS441 Engineering Distributed Objects for Cloud Computing under Professor Dr. Grechanik. So, in this project, we had to implement an automated conversational agent using a client server architecture. Uh, in the server side, we have used Akka HTTP, uh, and for the client side, we have used Ollama, and I'll be going over through the interaction between the server and the client. Uh, so the workflow basically kind of looks like this. It's like client sends the query, and the server processes the response, and the response is passed to the Ollama. So basically, first the client sends the query uh, to the server, and that response is fed to Ollama, and basically then a kind of a conversation happens between the LLMs, the one that is hosted on Bedrock and the one that is hosted locally, that is Ollama, and the result will be a file which will record the which will have the uh, which will have all the conversations that that was going on. Okay, so let me just take you through the server workflow. Uh, yeah, so like I said, the client will be hosted locally. It will be a standalone project, and it will basically send the initial query to the server uh, where we have hosted the Akka HTTP server, and that from there the response will be sent via gRPC to the AWS Lambda, and this has been exposed via API gateway. We'll be going through that later on, and then the AWS Lambda calls the through the SDK calls the Bedrock and gets the response, and that is transmitted back to the client. So regarding the conversational agent, the client over here like gets the response, and it sends it to the Ollama locally, and then uh, the response is again sent back to the server. So there's like a conversation going on, right? So and that will be recorded in a file. We'll be going through that as well. All right. So before going over to the deployment part, let's just walk you through the code a little bit. So yeah. So this is the server side code. It's fairly simple. Uh, uh, so I have created an HTTP server using Akka, like I said, and a gRPC server that will be running on the port. Let me check. That is 50051, and the HTTP will be running on 8080. Right. So uh, then we have the routes. Right. We have a query post request from like which will be hit via the client. The initial response will be sent over to this, and this will send the request to the gRPC client. Right. We have the protofiles. You can go have a look at this later on if you want to. This is the bedrock dot protofile, and yeah. So yeah, so the gRPC client sends the request to the gRPC server, which uh, which actually goes to the API gateway URL that we have mentioned over here, the API gateway URL. So this basically implements the sub files, the Bedrock service implementation. It This is the one that is sending the request to the API gateway URL and getting back the response. Uh, Similarly, That's basically the server overview. And then they have the client. That is also fairly simple. Uh, we have the main method. So this is a standalone project. It won't be running on a port or something. It won't be binded to a port. So yep. So we have provided the Bedrock server URL that is hosted on the 8080, like I showed you, and then we have a conversation manager which actually manages the conversation for the conversational agent. We are giving the Ollama. Ollama is hosted on port 11434. That will be hosted locally. And then we have the conversation recorder, which actually writes the entire conversation to a file. We'll be going over through that later on. So I think we can directly move on to the uh, deployment part. So first, let's test this locally. For that, we are using Docker. So I have created this assignment 3 deployment part, which has the Docker Compose and a conversations folder in which the entire conversation will be shown. So before that, let me just start the Ollama locally. And yeah, so here, let me just show you the Docker file as well, the Docker Compose file. So this is a Docker Compose file. We are mentioning the ports, the environment variables, the Bedrock URL, the Ollama URL. You can go over through this later on. And before that, let me just go through this as well. So this is where this is the EC2 instance where the server has been hosted. And I can show you here as well. I have connected to the EC2 instance. And this is the Lambda function that we have created. I've copy pasted it in the console so we can use it directly. And then we have the API gateway, which which exposes the Lambda function basically to the internet. We can use this query to send a post request to it. So, so right now we'll be seeing it locally. So, like I said, in the conversation agent, we are passing the initial query, that is how do docs express love. You can change it to anything you want. And so let's just start the server and the client. So I'll be using the docker compose build command. So as you can see, the server has been started and the gRPC server has also started. So okay, let me just show you the logs as well. As you can see, we are getting the response from Bedrock as well. Mhm. Let us wait till this finishes. So we'll just go through the conversation file that will get us the output. Yeah, so by the way, we have in the application.configuration file, we have set the max turns as 10. Max turns means the number of conversations that we want the models to have. So we have set it as 10. So it's the ninth conversation, just one more. This is the 10th conversation. All right, so we have the conversation in the conversations folder. Let me just show you that. Yep, as you can see, this was the our initial query: how do dogs express love? Then the response was this. This was again sent to Ollama. Then it created another response. So this is the entire conversation that is recorded. So that's it for the local part. Now let me just show you how is it deployed on the server. Yep. So I have already this I've already pushed the image uh, to the EC2 instance, and I also have the Docker Compose YAML file. This is specific to the EC2 instance, so here we won't be having the client part because we only have the server that is being hosted there. So we just have the Akka HTTP and the gRPC server, and these are the credentials. I've already set it in the console there. So you can just directly start our server, Docker Compose up. Yep, so as you can see, it has started the gRPC server and the HTTP server as well. So let me just now for the client deployment, I have made a separate folder. Let me show you the contents. This also has a conversations folder. It is empty right now, and let me show you the Docker Compose as well. So this has the client part because it is being hosted locally. So this only has the client part. So let's just use the same command. So this will start the client, and we just show you the logs over here as well. As you can see, we are getting the logs. It is interacting with the client. Three conversations. These are the logs for the server. 37. Let us wait a couple of minutes more. Yep. So the conversation is over. The client has stopped. Let's go to the conversations folder. You can see the latest conversation. Yep. So it's basically the same. The response, I don't think it will change I mean, the response that we're getting from the Bedrock model or from the Ollama. Also, I forgot to mention that uh, for the Bedrock, I'm using this model. Let me just show you. It Titan text UN Lite. You can go through the documentation part to know how to use it. I'm using this in the project. Uh, yeah, so that was it for this project. And we have successfully implemented a conversational agent. And also, we have done the Dockerization part, which was for an additional bonus. Since we are grad students, we had to make a conversational agent that was using Ollama that we have successfully implemented. Mm, So that was it for the scope of this video. Thank you so much.